The network is very slow at the moment. Right. So we're moving now to chapter 14. The chapter covers collections, generics, and lambdas. I'm going to talk about collections and generics today, and I'll just tell you what the lambda is, but we're not actually going to do any example. I just would like you to know when you hear this term what it means. It's actually becoming more and more important, it seems. Daniel is agreeing with me, so that's a good sign. All right, so in Java, as of Java 5, Java added a new framework. It's called the collections framework, and it consists of interfaces and then of classes. So the collection framework contains the collection interface and then the map interface. Sometimes they both call collections interchangeably. A collection can be a set or a list. So these are different data structures. A set is a type of data structure that is characterized by having unique unordered elements. So if your data allows you to be stored in a way that is not ordered, you don't need to access it in an ordered manner, but it's unique, then you have a set. On the other hand, if you have a structure that you need to organize as a list, then you need to use a list interface, and then those classes inherit from those interfaces. So the list interface is going to be implemented by two structures, a linked list and an array list. Linked list is something we're going to talk more about in the next class. In this class here, we're going to focus as an example of collections with an array list. And also this works out well because we can contrast it with the array. So the array list is implemented actually as an array using arrays, but it has different functionality than the array as we learned it in Java. The other thing about the array list is that while the array is it's a part of the language, of the Java language, an array list is a class that was added as part of the framework, right? And then we have the linked list. And then the maps contain hash maps and tree maps, and these are two types of structures you use when you need to work with key value pairs. With a tree map allowing you to organize your key value pairs in a hierarchical structure. So that's a brief overview of the collection framework. And if we take a look here, how arrays and collections are similar and how they differ. So they both can only store elements of the same type. So there's a similarity. There's several differences, however. As we know, arrays are a fixed size, so we can dynamically change the size of an array. On the other hand, with a collection, such as an array list, it's going to automatically resize for you, if necessary. With arrays, we can store primitive types, such as an int, whereas with the collections, you can't do that. What you need to do is you need to use the wrapper classes. Do you remember the integer with capital I, the double with the capital G, those classes that we learned about? So you need to use these classes when you work with collections. Although there is a feature called auto-boxing that Java is going to help you out to a certain extent with converting between primitive and object types. And arrays don't provide methods for operations, whereas with the collections, you can call methods. So if you want to add an element to an array, you need to use the index to find it and add it in this way, whereas with a collection, there is a method called add. And if you call the add method, it's just going to add it for you at the end of the array list. So here is an example of what the syntax looks like. This is an array, so we have an array of strings, and then we have to add the elements, Java, JavaScript, JSP rather, and MySQL, and then we access it through the enhanced loop. So in this case, it's the string S encodes, and then you print it out, whereas here is the syntax for an array list. So an array list is going to take the diamond operator, as you can see. And then in the diamond operator, you tell it the type of the data type, which has to be of type object. It's an object. And then you construct it here. You say a new array list. You can also put the type here, or you can leave it blank. So it's easier to just leave it blank. And then the parents. So that's how you instantiate an array list. And then to add elements to it, instead of using the index, you use one of the methods that belong to the array list class, which is add. To access inside the array list, you still can use the enhanced for loop. But these are the two different syntaxes for array versus an array list. And again, an array list is an example of a collection. Okay, so far, so good. So the syntax is a bit different, but I'm confident you'll be fine getting used to it. Okay, so again, these are the interfaces: collection, set, list, and map. And some of the classes: array list, linked list, hash, set, hash map, and tree map. And we're going to zero in on the array list for this class. So the general syntax for specifying elements in a collection is going to be the class name, such as array list, and then the type, and again the type has to be an object, needs to be an object, the name, and then the new class, and then you can specify the type here or not. With the later versions of Java, it's not required to specify the type twice, so generally we're going to leave it out, right? And you have an example here with creating an array list of strings and an array list of integers, with the capital I being, again, a class, a wrapper class integer which wraps around the primitive int type. And you can also have array lists of not only built-in but also custom classes, user-defined classes, such as, for example, a product. Right? So if we create our own product class, this is a valid type, so you can have an array list of products. Okay, so this is the new syntax we're going to be using. So there are a couple of common constructors for the array list. One of them is you create your array with telling it E being the type. And by default, it's going to create 10 elements. The array list by default in Java is 10 elements. So if that works for you, you can use it. You can also have a second constructor where, in addition to the type, you pass the capacity. So if you know ahead of time that your array list will be bigger than, let's say, 10 elements, it actually makes sense to specify how big you want it to be, because even though it's great that the array list dynamically creates, changes the size, it's still an operation that is costly because you have to copy it from one array to another, right? So again, if you know that your array will be bigger than 10, you want to specify the capacity here. Let's say 200. Does this make sense? So here are some of the methods of the array list. I should probably have us go and look at the class in the documentation, and we can do this in a moment. But with the array list, you can add elements. You add an object, it's always an object. You can add an object at a specified index. If you don't specify where you want to add your object, it will be added always at the end. But maybe you want to put it somewhere else, then you need to specify the index as well. You can get the index of a specified object, and also you can get the size of your array list. So for example, here, we're adding some 3 elements to this list, and then we can get the last element by saying the size -1, and again the same idea, it's 0 based, so it's -1. And then we can say calls.get, get the element at the last index, and then it's going to give you MySQL. And if you want to display all of the elements inside the array list, then you're going to use the enhanced for loop. There is also another way to display a collection. If you just say the name of the collection, so in this case the array list is codes, then you're going to get this output of all the elements in square brackets. So that's an alternative way of outputting the array list. So at this time, what I'd like you to do is, the slides that we went through, they have enough for you to create an example of an array list and then add a few elements to it, and then practice the following lines here. Get the last element and also print out the array list. Since we're working with strings, what you want to do is you want to use this syntax here. You want to create an array list of type strings, and you're going to need to import it, import the package containing the class. So go ahead and take a few minutes. Again, create an array list, add 3 or 4 elements to it, such as the 3 types of books, JavaScript, Java, and just some kind of string, and then practice how to get the last element and get it returned, and also practice how to print out the entire content of the array list. So this would be spread over several different slides between slide 8 through 12. You need to import Java util array list for this example. And then we're going to do a more complete example together. So actually, chapter 14 invoice exercise, it's a lot of code. I don't know why I was thinking it's less. I think it's too big to hang code together. I think after you finish with this example, I think we should just download it, and then there are several files I would like us to review. It also includes a string.util file I would like us to review, and then the file that uses array list. But I'll give you a couple more minutes to finish up here with the array list. And actually, there are also a couple more short exercises that I would like you to do after this one. So, do you need a little more time, or are you finished with? Was everyone able to create the array list, okay, and display? All right. In this case, let's see here. Is this? In this case, let's take a look at a few more methods with the array list class. So we have clear, contains, index of, is empty, remove, set, and to array. In other words, you can convert between array list and array. And so I'll let you look at the documentation. One of the things I'd like you to do is to go to the Oracle site and look at the documentation for these methods. But there are also a couple of examples to add to your existing array list example. So how would you replace an element? You'd replace an element by specifying with the set method the index and then the string that is going to replace. In this case, it's a string. It doesn't have to be the existing item. So after you add the following code, then your new array list, your updated array list would contain Java, JSP, and Android. Right? So you'll do this example in a moment. Let me just run through the next couple of slides first. If you wanted to remove an element, then you'd call the remove method, and then again, you specify the index in which you want to remove the element. And after this, you can, first of all, you can return. So you can store the returned item in a string, as you can see here, and then you can print it out to see what it is. And if you print out your array list updated, it will no longer contain the removed item. And you can also search for an element, such as Android. So you can use the contains. This one contains based on your search term. And then you can print out this list contains search code, and it will print it for you. Right? So this is a conditional if it contains it, only will it print for you.
And you can also do it, you could have it so that you can put it in an else that it doesn't.
Of course. Well, yes, you can handle the else as well. So you can work on these, and also maybe as you're working on these snippets of code, you will be allowed to add integers, even though they're primitive types, because of this auto-boxing feature. So you can try. This would be another array list you need to create. So this one is of type integer with a capital I, but it will allow you to add numbers, which are the primitive integers. And then you can print them out. And as you can see, if you get an item from the array, you can store it in a primitive type int, right? And then you can also use an enhanced loop to print out the primitive types. So these are the next 3 or 4 little code snippets that I would like you to work on. and just add to the existing project. And then you need to create your second array with the integer so you can verify how you can out of box between classes and primitive types. So these are slides. I'll let you work on this by yourself again. They're just snippets of code. Slide 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19. Okay.
So is the extra credit you could only turn that into that's no longer available? And I'm just asking because
No,
I
it's
just
fine.
noticed
I didn't really say that, and I was asked by a student. I think we just use the same rule. They have, if it's turned in within 3 days, they'll get 80 points, and after that, 0. So let's
Yeah, I
just
had a
go with
couple
that.
people ask me, I'm
Yeah.
like, no, it's got a due date. That means you gotta have a due by then.
Usually that's how I do it, but I didn't specify it. So some students, if they turn it in within 3 days, they can get 80%.
And most of that account, I just got a couple of them. I know something's inside somewhere where it shouldn't be, so it's not looping right, but
We can take a look maybe during the lab time. I'm thinking we have some time today for lab time.
I think, yeah, it'll be all right. I'm not too super worried about it.
in the folder for but
You didn't post this. Was there anything?
it's
No, it shouldn't be from the original clips. Which version are you using?
that's
Well, we don't have a name, so let's see. No, no. There's
Oh.
no name.
oh,
Oh, this is a problem. Have you finished with the second part of the array list? Looks like it. Michael? Okay. So then let's take a look at the invoice program together instead of typing it from scratch. There's just too many files. And then we take our break and then you can have some lap time. Please go to week 10 module and let's download the file, or you can use the book app from chapter 14. So you can either get it from Google Drive or from your flash drive. It's up to you. What is that? This is the book app, so it's neither. Yes. chapter 14. And let's open it up in Eclipse. Oh, is it already imported? What do you mean no projects found? Here we go.
Same problem with imported.
That's because there is a subfolder, but after that it should work. Did you get it to work?
No, I'm just doing from book source.
Huh. Weird. Well, then I guess we have to use, I don't know why this is not importing as it should. Then you have to use the flash drives. Or we could just look at the code, but if you have it on a flash drive, it's better to just import it properly. So this is the book app from chapter 14. This should work, but it's not working.
Oh, I know why. It's probably because Google Drive
It did something.
replaced the dot with an underscore
Yeah.
in the class path.
I figured it's
files.
something with
So-
Google Drive. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you can rename those files,
I think I'm just going to get it from my flash drive. That's quicker in my case. But yeah, it's probably something with Google. Because normally we just download files, not an entire project, right?
yeah, if you had archived it, that would have
Yes.
worked.
Well, I didn't. Sorry.
Yeah. And working on, you can just rename it.
There we go. As long as you get it to work somehow.
Yeah, that does work. So
I got it to work too.
yeah, so if you just rename the files from underscore project.xml to dot project.xml, that'll
Okay. Great.
rename both those files.
So where is everyone with import? Was it the last one to import, or are you okay? Do you have the project? Great. So in this case, my apologies for the delay, but let's take a look. All right, so we have the invoice app, and let's run it first to see what it does. And again, we're working with the book app from chapter 14.
Mine didn't work either, so yeah.
Okay, mine works. So it looks okay. In any case, sorry that happened, but next time I'll just ask you to get it from the flash drive instead of uploading it. So enter product code such as Java. I want 4. Another line item, yes. JSP. I want 2. And then it's going to give us the invoice total. So as you can see, I mistakenly put a slash here, so it's not finding the JSP. But the goal of the program is to give you a line item and then the total for the products listed. So this is what the program, the app, will do. And there are a couple of things I wanted us to look at together. So we have a product class, which is the product class you're familiar with code description and price. We have a line item class with product, quality, and total. And I believe we have looked at the line item before in a previous chapter as well. So you can get and set the product quantity and the total. And then we have the invoice. And so the invoice class has an array list for an instance variable. And so here is the new addition. And this is an array list of type line item class, which is in the same package, so it's seeing it. So we create a private array list line item, and we call it line items. And then here is the constructor. Line items is equal to a new array list. And you can put these two on one line, as I showed you in the slides, or you can separate them. And then you have the add, the getter and the setter, the add and get line items. So to add a line item on line 17, you're going to pass in a line item, as you can see, and then you're going to use the add method because that's how you add items to the array list. So it's line items, the name of your array list, dot, add, and then you add the line item that was passed in here. So this is your setter method, right? And then to get the line items, you're going to return the array list. So this is different here because we use using an array list as opposed to an object or a primitive type. And then the invoice total. You start with we set the invoice total to 0, and then what we do is we use an iteration or an enhanced loop through the array list for all the line items for each line item in line items array list, and then we add line item gets total to the previous, and then this is how we accumulate the total, and then we return the invoice total. Line item, by the way, is going to come from the line item class. And then finally, we have a method to format. So you can see that it's the same app as we did before, and the differences come from where we're using the array list and how the array list is used. Does this help? Make sense? All right. The other thing I wanted to show you in this app, let's see, I think ProductDB is same as we know from before. But in the UI, this is the console app. For some reason, I caused a lot of confusion. Students didn't know what the console class was. So this is the console class, and it's just a wrapper class to get strings or to print strings. It was first introduced in week 8. You also have in this UI folder a string util class, which uses a string builder to essentially output the output from the program. And it's going to append spaces so that your output is lined up properly, right?
Is it appended to the beginning or the end?
I think to the end. So let's take a look at to the end. And let's look at the invoice app itself. So we get create a new invoice, and then you ask the user to enter the product codes. And when you're displaying the invoice now, you're using the string builder, append, and then you're padding each of these items. And so this is how many spaces you are going to pad to each of the columns. And this is, with adding this padding is what allows you for your columns down here to be properly formatted, right? So the description is going to add 34, price, quantity, and total. And then we do the same. So the description, price, and total is the heading of your columns. And then you're going to also append the same for each of the outputs, so that everything is properly padded. So again, pad is an item, sorry, it's a method in the string util. So if the length of the string, if the length of the string is less than the length, then you're going to append a space so long as the length continues to be less, right? And then you return the string, or if they're the same length, then you just return the string. So this is a little tricky, I guess, maybe to wrap your head around. Take some time to study the code. I wanted us to write it, but it's too long. I think you might want to spend a few minutes studying further. So again, the way the array list is used is new, and also an introduction to using this string util, so you can pad your outputs with evenly aligned columns. Do you have any questions? All right. Let's take our break and then lab time, unless you have questions on this code. So I'll see you in 10. So I put news point twice. Seems pretty clean, right?
I like how the R's, you can tell they're bold.
Yeah, Marcy does. Yeah, people are like, I know. Aaron was commenting. It's just like,
That's perfect.
it's
It
hard.
looks like somebody stamped it
I
on your
know,
arm.
exactly. It's hard to know that you're actually, like, we're just like holding my arm and doing this.
And doing it this way.
Right, right. It started fitting really badly, but it was totally worth it.
Yeah, that is, everybody that's seen it says, oh my God, that is so cool.
Yeah.
Somebody would get, that she would get that master equation order.
This is so cool. So thank you
What'd your
again.
daughter think?
Did she see it yet? In
Yeah, she
person?
sent me the double hearts.
She hasn't seen it in person.
She saw it in person yesterday. She was in a bad mood, so we're totally under there. I don't even know why, actually. So,
Because she's a teenage girl. and
my
they-
son
the way
liked
they
it.
act.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's what they do. But my son liked it.
Cool.
So.
Super glued ones.
Right? I know the one where we did
Still not the recording.